At this point, I was starting to get more energy. I was starting to finally lose weight and, start to see benefits from cleaning up my gut, but it was still not enough to really help me overcome all the issues that I was having. Because even though I had, I guess, what I would call temporary relief, the problem was that even after doing all of that, I realized that I still had a weak immune system. And so even though I had lost weight, even though I was getting more energy, even though my hair stopped falling off and my skin was doing better, I was still fatigued, and I was still not 100%. And what I started to, realize what that led me to was, number one, this was actually kind of like that first moment that I decided that I was going to really figure this out, and I was really going to dedicate. I took almost about a year, in between 2012 and 2013, somewhere in there. I took almost about a year of just researching, reading. Part of my fasting was, like I said, I wasn't able to work my business. I was actually struggling financially, which was adding to my stress. And so fasting was actually making sense because I wasn't spending too much money on food. But really what came out of that was understanding that one of the reasons why I had a weak immune system was because I had low vitamin D. And if you Google vitamin D and immune system, you'll find that there's a correlation between vitamin D and your immune system, meaning the more vitamin D you have, the stronger your immune system. The lower your vitamin D, the lower your immune system, which translates to the higher vitamin D you have, the more good bacteria you have, the stronger that they are. The less vitamin D that you have means that you have less good bacteria and probably more bad bacteria. And so at this point, I started to have a lot of epiphanies, and I started to really understand that, hey, there are things that I used to believe, like I said, hey, there's nothing that I could do about it, and I was going to have to take hormones for, the rest of my life. Well, as I started to research vitamin D, one of the things that I started to realize is that vitamin D is actually one of the key ingredients and nutrients that you need to produce hormones. And so this is the first time that I started to ask myself, why is my body not producing enough thyroid hormone? Like, is this really what's going on? This is where I started, where I used to think like, okay, I just have low thyroid and that's what's causing everything else. But then I started to realize, okay, no, here's the thing. If you are deficient in vitamin D, then you are probably deficient in hormones like testosterone. There's a bunch of hormones that are derived directly from vitamin D. Progesterone, there's testosterone leads to estrogen, and there's a bunch of other ones, and which all of those combined basically help produce thyroid hormone. And so this is where I start to ask myself, okay, maybe one of the reasons why I'm not producing enough thyroid hormone is because my vitamin D levels are low. And so this is where you want to start asking yourself, hey, how are my vitamin D levels? Because it may be that, yeah, you may not be producing enough thyroid hormone, but is it just because the thyroid's not working, or is it because you have low vitamin D, right? So as you start to explore these, your little box basically starts to expand, and you start to find solutions that before you thought were non-existent because you were told that, hey, there's nothing that you can do about this. So I started to research vitamin D, and with vitamin D, one of the things that happens is as you begin to improve your immune system, your digestion begins to improve, which means your nutrients begin to improve. Now, if you don't improve your immune system, if you don't raise your vitamin D, if you don't improve your gut health, one of the things that I was finding was that eating protein, not only was it causing a lot of these issues, but because my body wasn't able to break down protein, the body still needs amino acids, and amino acids are basically, if you break down protein to its smallest component, if you think of it like a chain, if you break it down to a single link, that's basically what an amino acid is. And amino acids are used for different functions. One of the functions is for the liver to convert T4 into T3. And so one of the amino acids is, for example, tyrosine, which combined with the iodine basically makes your thyroid hormone. And so if you're not digesting proteins and you're not getting amino acids, now you're not getting the nutrients. And so I started to look at nutrient deficiencies. Now, follow this, because remember, before I used to think like, okay, well, maybe my thyroid's not producing enough T4 hormones. But now I'm finding out, well, maybe I am producing enough thyroid hormone T4, but it's my liver that's not converting T4 into T3 because I don't have the nutrients that are needed for this conversion. Or maybe, in the case of, people who've had their thyroid removed and they need to supplement, well, maybe you are supplementing with thyroid hormones, but your liver's still not able to convert that T4 into T3 because of nutrient deficiencies, because of low vitamin D, or, for other reasons that I'm going to be sharing as I go along. But you can start to see that now it's no longer the thyroid that I'm looking at. I'm no longer trapped in this little box that, hey, your thyroid's not working and there's nothing that you can do about it. Now I'm starting to expand my knowledge and realizing like, hey, there's more to fatigue, hair loss, brain fog than just low thyroid. There's a lot of these other issues. Some of these other issues, for example, could be cholesterol. Prior to me doing any of this, like I said, I was afraid when I first learned that, hey, in order for your body to produce testosterone, which, at the time, one of the things that I started to realize was that I had basically low testosterone because of low vitamin D, which put me at a estrogen dominant state. And the other thing that was happening was because my body wasn't getting these amino acids, the adrenals were basically releasing cortisol, and cortisol was essentially breaking down muscle to get the amino acids. But that was also one of the causes of my hair loss, dry skin, and all these other things. And that increased cortisol also basically affects the production of these other hormones because it puts your hormone system out of balance. And so I knew that I needed to boost my testosterone, and the way that I found to do it is basically by increasing my vitamin D and introducing cholesterol into my diet. And again, the first time that I heard this, I was kind of like sketchy about it because I was like, I've never in my life thought, hey, I'm gonna have cholesterol for dinner, right? But as I started to learn and understand more, then I started to realize like, hey, this is something that I really need to start looking into it. Now, there are other nutrient deficiencies, which again, if you don't have enough good gut flora, or if you have an increased amount of bad gut flora, a lot of these nutrients can't really be processed. So if you try to eat cholesterol, and remember with cholesterol, there is bad cholesterol and there's good cholesterol. So if you have high levels of cholesterol, that means that you have high levels of bad cholesterol and not enough good cholesterol. And this is kind of like the same thing. You want to decrease the amount of bad and you want to increase the amount of good cholesterol, because cholesterol, one of the things that it does is that it helps digest fats. It's basically what creates an emulsion in your body. So if you think of cholesterol, if you think of milk is basically an emulsion of fat and water. Oil and water don't mix, but you can emulsify it, and that emulsifier in milk is basically cholesterol, right? And so in your body, if you're trying to supplement vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. So actually vitamins A, D, E, and K are fat soluble. So you can be eating foods that are, have these nutrients, but if you cannot emulsify it, then you cannot digest it, and therefore you cannot get vitamin D, which is one of the reasons why for me, when I started to supplement with vitamin D, I didn't take any regular vitamin D supplements. I actually took fermented cod liver oil. And the reason why I took fermented was because I understood that I don't have the gut flora, I don't have the immune system, I don't have the digestive capability to process regular cod liver oil, but fermented basically does what, if you were to drink regular cod liver oil, that cod liver oil would basically turn into vitamin D in your gut if you had the good bacteria that does that conversion. But because I know that I have digestive issues, I know that I have a weak immune system, I needed to take fermented cod liver oil. And also that's also what allowed me to introduce cholesterol into my diet. If you're not able to process cholesterol, that's also what leads to poor liver function and poor bile production. And again, bile, if all of that starts to happen, that's how you start to develop stones, like either kidney stones or all these things. It's because of all of these things that are essentially going on here.